The courtroom breathes. It is a living thing, an ancient beast of polished wood and stale air, and its lungs are the quiet, rhythmic sighs of people who have lost hope. Dust motes dance in the slanted afternoon light, tiny golden spirits in a cathedral of despair. In this cathedral, Judge Alistair Abernathy is God. He sits enthroned behind a mountain of mahogany, a man whose black robe seems not so much worn as it is grown, an extension of the darkness within him. His face is a collapsed star of wrinkles and veins, his eyes twin chips of obsidian that have seen everything and felt nothing. His kingdom is small, but absolute. And his chief apostle is Sergeant Frank Miller. Miller stands by the defendant's table, a monument of cheap authority. He is a man carved from lard and prejudice, his uniform stretched taut over a belly that speaks of countless donuts and a profound contempt for physical exertion. His face is a permanent flush of indignation, the face of a man who believes the world owes him respect he has never earned. The courtroom is his fiefdom. The shuffling defendants, the tearful families, the overwhelmed public defenders, they are his serfs. He patrols the aisles with a proprietary swagger, the jingle of his keys a constant reminder of who holds the power to lock things away. Today, his gaze has found a target. A man sits alone in the third row of the gallery. He is a black man, perhaps in his late 30s, with a stillness about him that is unsettling in this room of nervous twitches and stifled sobs. He wears a suit. It is a simple charcoal grey suit, and to the casual observer, it is unremarkable. But Frank Miller is not a casual observer. He is a connoisseur of weakness, a scholar of perceived inferiority. He leans over to his partner, a younger, leaner bailiff named Henderson. "Get a load of this guy," Miller mutters, his voice a low rumble of derision. "Looks like he got his suit from a funeral home lost and found." Henderson snickers, a thin, reedy sound. The man in the gallery does not react. He simply watches the proceedings, his expression unreadable. His focus is on the boy at the defendant's table, a teenager named Leo Washington who looks like he might shatter if someone speaks too loudly. Leo is accused of robbery, a charge built on the flimsiest of foundations, a single, contradictory eyewitness and a profound assumption of guilt by the arresting officer. His public defender, Sarah Jenkins, is a woman drowning in her caseload. She has the weary, haunted look of someone who fights a war she knows she will lose every single day. "Mr. Croft," Judge Abernathy drones, his voice like gravel stirred with a bone. "You may proceed." Prosecutor Alan Croft rises. He is a weasel poured into a suit a size too small, his movements quick and nervous. He sweats under the courtroom lights, a perpetual sheen of ambition and desperation on his forehead. "Thank you, Your Honor." The state intends to prove that the defendant, Leo Washington, did knowingly and with malicious intent. Marcus Vance, the man in the charcoal suit, tunes out the legalese. He knows the script. He has seen this play 1,000 times in 1,000 different rooms. The characters change, but the story is always the same. A system designed not to find truth, but to process bodies. He focuses on Miller. He sees the way the bailiff's eyes linger on Leo, the undisguised contempt. He sees the slight smirk that plays on Miller's lips as Croft paints Leo as a hardened criminal, a menace to society. Leo is 17. He has no prior record. He was an honor roll student before his father died last year and his world fell apart. These are details that do not matter in the kingdom of Judge Abernathy. Abernathy calls a brief recess. The moment the judge sweeps from the room, Miller is in motion. He doesn't approach the defendant. He doesn't check the doors. He makes a beeline for the third row. He stops directly in front of Marcus, planting his feet wide. It is a posture of pure intimidation. "Can I help you?" Miller asks, but it is not a question. It is an accusation. Marcus looks up slowly. His eyes are calm, but there is a depth to them that Miller mistakes for fear. "No, thank you, Sergeant. I'm just observing." "Observing," Miller repeats, drawing the word out. He lets his gaze travel down Marcus's body, from his face to his shoes, and then back up to the suit. He smirks. "Nice suit. Did you rent it for the occasion?" The insult hangs in the air, thick and ugly. It is designed to humiliate, to put Marcus in his place. To remind him that in this room, he is nothing. A spectator. A nobody in a cheap suit. Marcus feels a familiar coldness settle in his gut. It is not anger, not yet. It is something older and more patient. It is the feeling of a coiled spring, tightening, waiting. It serves its purpose, Marcus replies, his voice even. I'll bet it does, Miller scoffs. He leans in closer, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial growl. You family of the defendant? Here to stare down the judge? Because that's not going to work here. Not in my courtroom. My courtroom. The words echo in Marcus's mind. The sheer, unadulterated arrogance of it. This man, this glorified hall monitor, believes this hall of justice belongs to him. I'm not here to cause trouble, Sergeant, Marcus says. You see, that's where you're wrong, Miller says, his breath smelling of stale coffee and self-importance. People like you, just by being here, are trouble. You bring it with you. Now, I'm going to ask you to sit here, keep your mouth shut, and not make any sudden movements. Understand? It is a threat wrapped in the language of procedure. Marcus simply nods. A single, deliberate dip of his chin. Satisfied that he has asserted his dominance, Miller straightens up. He gives Marcus one last look of utter disdain and swaggers back to his post near the judge's bench. He feels powerful. He has put the nobody in his place. He has no idea who he is talking to. He does not see the man in the cheap suit. He sees a stereotype, a caricature born of his own poisoned mind. He does not know that every word he speaks is being recorded. He does not know that he is not a guard in his own kingdom. He is a fly, buzzing stupidly, caught in a web he cannot see. And the spider is just waiting for the right moment to pull the strings tight. The recess ends. Judge Abernathy returns to the bench, his face a mask of bored impatience. The gears of the machine grind back into motion. Sarah Jenkins, the public defender, stands to cross-examine the state's only witness, a nervous convenience store clerk. Her hands tremble slightly as she shuffles her notes. She is a good person, Marcus knows, but she is a soldier armed with a pocketknife in a war of artillery. Miss, Delgado, Sarah begins, her voice barely audible. You testified that you saw my client, Leo Washington, running from the scene. Is that correct? Yes, the clerk says, not looking at Leo. And you described the perpetrator as a young black man, about 6 feet tall, wearing a blue hoodie. Yes. Miss Delgado, Sarah presses, a hint of strength entering her voice. My client is 5'7". And on the night in question, he was wearing a grey jacket. We have security footage from his apartment building's lobby to prove it. Prosecutor Croft leaps to his feet. Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is badgering the witness and misrepresenting evidence. Sustained, Abernathy barks, without even looking at Croft. The ruling is automatic, a reflex. He glares at Sarah. Miss Jenkins, do you have a point, or are you just wasting the court's time with trivialities? Your Honor, the discrepancy in the description is hardly a triviality. It is trivial to me, Abernathy cuts her off. The witness identified the defendant in a photo lineup. That is what matters. Move on, or I will hold you in contempt. Sarah Jenkins wilts. The fight goes out of her. She looks at her notes, then at Leo's terrified face, and her shoulders slump in defeat. No further questions, Your Honor. Marcus watches the exchange, his jaw tight. This is the part he hates the most. The slow, methodical crushing of hope. It is a public execution of justice, and everyone in the room is a complicit spectator. He sees Miller standing behind him, a smug look on his face. The bailiff catches Marcus's eye and gives a slight, almost imperceptible shake of his head, a gesture that says, see? You can't win here. The prosecution rests its case. It has taken all of 45 minutes. Sarah Jenkins calls Leo to the stand. The boy walks like he's heading to the gallows, his movements stiff with fear. He is sworn in, and his hand on the Bible is shaking so badly he can barely hold it steady. "Leo," Sarah says, her voice soft, trying to be reassuring. "Just tell the court where you were on the night of October 25th. "I was at home," Leo whispers, his voice cracking. I was studying for my chemistry midterm." Croft handles the cross-examination with the subtlety of a butcher. He twists Leo's words, mocks his fear, and paints his quiet life as the cunning facade of a budding super-predator. "Studying?" Croft sneers. "Or were you studying the layout of the Quickie Mart, planning your big score? A whole $73, was it? Must have seemed like a fortune to you." "Objection!" Sarah cries out. "Argumentative." "Overruled," Abernathy says, a flicker of amusement in his dead eyes. "I'll allow it. Let's hear what the boy has to say." Leo looks lost. I didn't do it. I was at home. My mom, she was in the next room." "Ah, your mother," Croft says, circling him like a shark. "Of course. Your alibi is your mommy. How convenient." The humiliation is complete. Leo is fighting back tears. Sarah Jenkins looks on, helpless. The system is not just failing, it is actively malevolent. From the gallery, Marcus Vance watches it all. He is a statue of perfect calm, but inside, a cold fire is building. He is cataloguing every biased ruling, every sneer, every lie. He is adding fuel to a pyre that has been under construction for months. The defense rests. There is no jury. Judge Abernathy will decide Leo's fate. As if it was ever in question. Abernathy leans forward, clasping his skeletal hands together on the bench. He peers down at Leo, a predator savoring his meal. "Mr. Washington," the judge begins, his voice dripping with false solemnity. "I have heard the evidence presented today. I have listened to your testimony. And frankly, I find it utterly unbelievable." He pauses for effect, letting the weight of his words crush the air out of the room. "This city has a disease," Abernathy continues, his voice rising into a righteous sermon. "A disease of lawlessness, of disrespect, of young men like you who believe the world owes them something. They think they can take what they want, with no consequences." He points a long, bony finger at Leo. "Well, in my courtroom, there are consequences." He glances at Croft, who is preening. He glances at Miller, who is standing tall, a guardian at the gates of this corrupt temple. "Given your disposition," Abernathy says, "the word choice a deliberate cruelty, and the clear threat you pose to this community, I am inclined to impose the maximum possible sentence. 10 years in state prison. Maybe we can teach you some respect inside. Maybe you'll learn that your actions have repercussions." The threat is a physical blow. Leo flinches. His mother, sitting in the front row, lets out a choked sob. 10 years. For a crime he did not commit. His life, over at 17. Miller, standing near the back, hears the mother's cry and a cruel smile touches his lips. He turns his head slightly, just enough to look at Marcus. He wants to see the despair on the man's face. He wants to relish the defeat. He leans down, moving silently until his mouth is just inches from Marcus's ear. "Tough break," Miller whispers, his voice a venomous hiss. "Your boy is going away for a long, long time. Looks like that fancy suit didn't bring him much luck." Marcus does not move. He continues to stare straight ahead, at the unfolding tragedy. Miller isn't finished. He needs to twist the knife. He needs to make it personal. Maybe you should have spent less on those cheap threads and more on a real lawyer for him. But then again, he adds, his voice dropping to a near-inaudible growl, filled with a lifetime of baked-in hatred, "People like you never learn, do you? Always cutting corners. Always looking for a handout. It's in the blood. That is the line. The moral event horizon. The final, irrevocable mistake." Something in Marcus shifts. The patient, coiled spring does not snap. It simply ceases to be a spring. It transforms into something else. Something hard and cold and absolute. The observer is gone. The avenger has arrived. His stillness is no longer calm. It is predatory. Abernathy raises his gavel. The small wooden hammer feels like the executioner's axe in his hand. He savors the moment. The power to destroy a life with a single motion. Leo Washington, on the charge of robbery in the first degree, this court finds you. He lifts the gavel high. Boom. The sound is not the gavel. It is the sound of the main courtroom doors, the massive oak slabs, being thrown open with such force that they slam against the marble walls. The noise is a thunderclap, a violent intrusion into the sanctified silence of the court. Every head whips around. Standing in the doorway are two figures. A woman in a razor-sharp navy blue suit, her silver hair cut in a severe, elegant bob. Beside her, a tall, imposing man in the uniform of a state police captain. Judge Abernathy freezes, his gavel held aloft. His face contorts in a mask of pure fury. What is the meaning of this? This is a court of law. I will have you removed for contempt. The woman ignores him completely. Her eyes scan the room, cool and appraising. They land on Marcus Vance. She gives a small, almost imperceptible nod. She strides into the courtroom, her heels clicking on the marble floor with the rhythmic finality of a ticking clock. The state police captain follows a half-step behind her, his hand resting casually on the hilt of his sidearm. They walk past the stunned gallery, past the confused bailiffs, and come to a stop directly in front of the judge's bench. Judge Abernathy, the woman says, her voice calm but carrying the unmistakable weight of immense authority. I am Attorney General Eleanor Ramirez. I apologize for the interruption. Abernathy's face cycles through a series of emotions, rage, confusion, and a dawning flicker of fear. The Attorney General. In his courtroom. Unannounced. Attorney General, he sputters, lowering the gavel slowly. To what do we owe this unexpected visit? I'm here for a swearing-in ceremony, Judge, Ramirez says, her expression unreadable. Abernathy blinks. A swearing-in? There's no ceremony scheduled in my court today. There must be some mistake. A thin, cold smile touches Ramirez's lips. There is no mistake, Alistair. I am here to personally oversee the swearing-in of this county's new district attorney. A confused murmur ripples through the courtroom. The previous DA had retired suddenly weeks ago, citing health reasons. The governor's new appointment had been kept under wraps. The new DA? Abernathy asks, his mind racing. Who? I wasn't informed. Attorney General Ramirez doesn't answer him directly. Instead, she turns her head, her gaze sweeping over the prosecution table, over the defense table, and into the gallery. Her eyes lock onto the man in the third row. The man in the cheap suit. Mr. Marcus Vance, she calls out, her voice ringing with clarity in the stunned silence. Would you please join us? Time seems to stop. Every single person in the room turns to look. They see the quiet black man, the one the bailiff had been harassing, the one everyone had dismissed as just another grieving family member. Frank Miller feels the blood drain from his face. A cold, nauseating dread washes over him, so intense it makes his knees feel weak. It is the primal fear of a bully who has just realized he has been taunting a lion. His heart hammers against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of panic. He looks from the Attorney General to Marcus, his mind refusing to connect the dots, to accept the impossible, horrifying truth. Prosecutor Alan Croft looks like he has been physically struck. His mouth hangs open, a wet, slack-jawed O of disbelief. His sweaty face has gone pale and clammy. Judge Abernathy stares, his jaw locked, his eyes wide with a confusion that is rapidly curdling into sheer terror. In the third row, Marcus Vance stands up. He moves with a fluid grace that belies his previous stillness. The charcoal suit, which Miller had mocked as cheap and ill-fitting, now seems to settle on his shoulders perfectly. It is not the suit of a victim. It is the armor of a warrior. He walks down the central aisle. His footsteps echo in the cavernous silence. Each step is deliberate, measured. Each step is a hammer blow against the foundation of Abernathy's corrupt kingdom. He passes Frank Miller. He does not look at him, but Miller flinches back as if he's been scorched. The bailiff is trembling, his face a grotesque mask of sweat and fear. The swagger is gone. The arrogance has evaporated. All that is left is a pathetic, terrified man. Marcus reaches the front of the courtroom. He nods respectfully to Attorney General Ramirez. "Eleanor," he says, his voice quiet but now filling the entire room. "Marcus," she replies with a warm, genuine smile. "Are you ready?" "I am." She turns to the court clerk, a woman who looks as if she might faint. "Clerk, please administer the oath of office for the district attorney of this county." The clerk, fumbling with her papers, finds the oath. Her voice shakes as she reads it. Marcus places his left hand on a Bible provided by the state police captain and raises his right hand. He looks out over the courtroom. He looks at Leo, whose face is a canvas of pure, unadulterated shock. He looks at Sarah Jenkins, whose eyes are wide with a dawning, brilliant hope. He looks at Croft, who is visibly shaking. He looks at Abernathy, whose face has turned a blotchy, apoplectic shade of purple. And finally, his gaze drifts to the back, to Sergeant Frank Miller, a man who now seems to have shrunk inside his own uniform. "I, Marcus Vance," he begins, his voice a clear, strong baritone that resonates with power, "do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of District Attorney to the best of my ability." When he finishes, the silence is absolute. Attorney General Ramirez turns to the bench. "Judge Abernathy, I present to you the new District Attorney, Marcus Vance." Marcus turns to face the judge. There is no triumph in his expression. Only a cold, hard resolve. "Your Honor," he says, the honorific dripping with ice. "As my first official act, I have a motion to make." Abernathy stares at him, speechless. The world has been turned upside down. The serf is now the king. "My first motion as district attorney for this county," Marcus announces, his voice ringing with authority, "is to dismiss all charges against the defendant, Mr. Leo Washington. With prejudice." Sarah Jenkins gasps, her hand flying to her mouth. Tears of relief and disbelief stream down her face. Leo just stares, his mind unable to process the sudden, miraculous reversal of his fate. You can't do that." Croft finally finds his voice, a panicked squeak. "The state has presented its case. You have no grounds." Marcus turns his head slowly to look at the prosecutor. It is the look of an entomologist examining a particularly unpleasant insect. "Mr. Croft," Marcus says, his voice dangerously soft. "You're fired." The words are like bullets. Croft staggers back a step. "What? You can't fire me. I have a contract." "Your contract is with the district attorney's office," Marcus replies calmly. "An office which I now run. Your services are no longer required." "Captain," he says, nodding to the state police officer, "please have one of your men escort Mr. Croft from the building. He is not to touch his computer, his files, or anything on his desk. His office is now a sealed area." A state trooper, who had entered silently behind the Attorney General, steps forward and places a firm hand on Croft's arm. The prosecutor crumples, all the fight draining out of him. He begins to babble, to protest, but the trooper leads him away like a disobedient child. The courtroom is in chaos. Abernathy starts banging his gavel, a frantic, useless rhythm. "Order! Order in this court! Mr. Vance, this is outrageous. This is a complete breakdown of judicial procedure." Marcus ignores the gavel. He walks over to the prosecution's table and picks up a thick, leather-bound folio he had placed there upon his arrival. He had carried it in with him, and everyone had assumed it was for the non-existent defense. He opens it. It is indeed a breakdown, Judge, Marcus says, his voice cutting through the noise. A breakdown of a corrupt and criminal enterprise that has been masquerading as a court of law for far too long. He pulls out a document. Let's start with this case. The State versus Leo Washington. I have here a sworn affidavit from the actual perpetrator, a man named Carlos Romero, who was arrested 2 days ago on an unrelated charge. In a full, videotaped confession, he admits to the convenience store robbery. A confession the arresting officer, a Detective Miller, Sergeant Miller's nephew, I believe, decided to bury because he preferred Mr. Washington as a suspect. Frank Miller makes a strange, strangled noise in the back of the room. I also have financial records, Marcus continues, pulling out another sheet, showing a series of unexplained cash deposits into Detective Miller's bank account, deposits that coincide with dates he closed cases involving defendants represented by a certain bail bondsman who happens to be Judge Abernathy's brother-in-law. Abernathy's face goes from purple to ashen grey. These are baseless allegations. Slander. Are they? Marcus asks softly. He turns a page in his folio. Let's talk about the incontrovertible eyewitness testimony. I have a report from my investigators detailing how Mr. Croft here threatened the witness, Miss Delgado, with deportation for her undocumented cousin if she didn't identify Leo Washington in the lineup he prepared. A lineup, I might add, in which Leo was the only person who even remotely matched the initial, and incorrect, description. He looks at Sarah Jenkins, who is staring at him, her expression a mixture of awe and dawning comprehension. Miss Jenkins, Marcus says, his voice softening for the first time. You and I have spoken. You told me you felt powerless, that every objection was overruled, every motion denied before you could even file it. You were right. The system wasn't just working against you. It was rigged. But you didn't give up. You kept fighting, and you kept notes. Thank you for your service. He is revealing her as his ally. He is elevating her in front of the very people who sought to crush her. Then, his eyes turn cold again as they sweep the room. This isn't about one case. This is about a pattern. A disease, as the judge so eloquently put it. He pulls a small digital audio recorder from his pocket. The pen camera. For the past 3 months, I have been a part of the governor's task force on judicial corruption. I have been observing, as I told the sergeant. He presses a button on the recorder. Miller's voice fills the courtroom, tinny and distorted, but unmistakably his. People like you, just by being here, are trouble. You bring it with you. And then the rest of it. The sneering insults about the suit. And the final, damning line. People like you never learn, do you? It's in the blood. A collective gasp goes through the gallery. Hearing the words spoken aloud, stripped of their whispered context, reveals their naked, brutal bigotry. Frank Miller begins to hyperventilate. His partner, Henderson, takes 3 quick steps away from him, as if Miller's corruption were a contagious disease. Henderson raises his hand slightly, a universal gesture of surrender. He wants no part of this. He is already turning on his boss to save himself. Abernathy finally loses all composure. He rises from his chair, his body trembling with uncontrollable rage. Enough, he shrieks, his voice cracking like thin ice. I am the judge in this courtroom. I will have order. I am holding you in contempt, Mr. Vance. I am holding everyone in contempt. Sergeant Miller, arrest this man. But Miller is frozen. He is a statue of terror, his eyes locked on Marcus. He cannot move. He cannot breathe. Marcus looks up at the judge, his expression one of almost pity. Your authority in this room is gone, Alistair. Your power was built on a foundation of fear and lies, and that foundation has just been reduced to dust. He turns to the back of the courtroom. You can come in now. The oak doors swing open again. This time, it is not 2 people. It is 6. They are U.S. Marshals, clad in tactical vests over their dark blue jackets, the words U.S. Marshal emblazoned in stark yellow letters across their backs. They move with a quiet, professional efficiency that makes the local bailiffs look like clumsy amateurs. The lead marshal, a tall, grim-faced man with a jawline that could cut glass, holds a stack of warrants in his hand. He strides to the front, his eyes never leaving the judge. He doesn't stop. He walks right past the bar, steps up the 2 stairs to the dais, and stands beside the bench, looking down at the sputtering judge. "Alistair Abernathy," the marshal says, his voice a low, hard growl. "You are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent." He doesn't wait for a response. He and another marshal grab Abernathy by the arms. The judge struggles, his rage turning into a pathetic, bleating panic. "Get your hands off me. I am a superior court judge. You have no jurisdiction." "Our jurisdiction is federal, Judge," the marshal says, unimpressed. Conspiracy to deprive rights under color of law. Mail fraud. Wire fraud. Money laundering. The list is quite long. They pull him from his chair. As they do, the lead marshal takes the black judicial robe and, with a gesture of profound contempt, yanks it from Abernathy's shoulders. Underneath, he is just a stooped, terrified old man in a wrinkled white shirt. The symbol of his power lies in a heap on the floor. Simultaneously, 2 other marshals approach Sergeant Frank Miller. "Frank Miller," one of them says, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. "You're under arrest for witness tampering, obstruction of justice, and perjury." Miller finally breaks. A sob escapes his lips. "No," he whimpers. "No, please. It was a joke. The suit, it was just a joke." The marshal is unmoved. He yanks Miller's hands behind his back and secures them with a pair of steel handcuffs. The click of the cuffs is the loudest sound in the room. They lead the 2 men, the judge and the bailiff, down the center aisle. The kings of this courtroom, now reduced to shackled prisoners, paraded in front of their former subjects. As Miller passes Marcus, his eyes, red-rimmed and filled with tears of self-pity, meet the new district attorney's. He looks for a sign of triumph, of gloating. He finds none. There is only a quiet, final judgment. Marcus adjusts the lapel of his charcoal grey suit. "About the suit, Sergeant," he says, his voice just loud enough for Miller to hear. "It's custom. Bespoke, actually. I find a good fit is essential for my line of work." He pauses, letting the words sink in. "Perhaps your new prison-issued uniform will fit you better. I hear orange is this year's black." The marshals lead the broken men out of the courtroom, and the heavy oak doors boom shut, sealing their fate. A new era has begun. The fallout is not a storm. It is a cleansing fire. The weeks and months that follow the day of the swearing-in are a methodical demolition of the old guard. District Attorney Marcus Vance moves not with the fury of a revolutionary, but with the precision of a surgeon, cutting out the cancer that has metastasized within the county's justice system. His office, restaffed with bright, ethical prosecutors handpicked by him and Attorney General Ramirez, becomes a relentless engine of reform. The case against former Judge Alistair Abernathy is a federal masterpiece. Marcus's investigators had compiled a mountain of evidence that is both damning and irrefutable. Financial records, wiretaps, and the terrified, self-serving testimony of co-conspirators paint a picture of a man who treated the law as his personal piggy bank. He sold verdicts, manipulated sentences, and colluded with criminals, all while preaching from the bench about law and order. He is convicted on 17 of 19 federal counts. The judge who presides over his trial, a stern woman from out of state, shows him none of the mercy he so frequently denied others. He is sentenced to 25 years in a federal supermax prison. Not a country club facility, but a hard, unforgiving place where his former title means less than nothing. His judicial pension is seized to create a restitution fund for his victims. His name is stripped from the law library he had dedicated. He is erased. Sergeant Frank Miller's fate is just as grim, though less grand. His trial is swift. The audio recording from Marcus's pen is the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. Played in open court, his racist tirade shocks even the most jaded court reporters. His nephew, the detective, turns on him immediately, trading testimony for a lighter sentence. His partner, Henderson, sings like a canary, detailing years of Miller's abuses of power, his shakedowns of defendants' families, his planting of evidence in minor cases to secure easy convictions. Miller is convicted of obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, and multiple civil rights violations. He is sentenced to 10 years in state prison. He enters the general population, a former lawman among men he helped put away. His arrogance and authority are gone, stripped away at the prison gates. He becomes what he always feared most: weak, invisible, and afraid. Alan Croft, the weasel of a prosecutor, avoids a long prison term by being the first to cooperate. He pleads guilty to lesser charges and provides a detailed roadmap of Abernathy's entire criminal network. He is disbarred, his legal career annihilated. After serving a 2-year sentence in a minimum security facility, he is released into a world that has no place for him. The last anyone hears, he is working as a night manager at a 24-hour laundromat, a ghost haunted by the career he so eagerly corrupted. But the fire does not only consume. It also purifies. For the heroes of the story, the world is remade. Marcus Vance becomes a legend. The press dubs him the Quiet Lion. He is a new kind of district attorney, one more interested in justice than in conviction rates. His first major initiative is the creation of a conviction integrity unit, the first of its kind in the state. He appoints Sarah Jenkins to run it. The once beaten-down public defender is transformed. Given real resources and institutional support, she blossoms into a formidable force for good. Her unit begins the painstaking process of reviewing every single major felony conviction handed down by Judge Abernathy over his 20-year career. In the first year alone, they overturned 32 wrongful convictions, freeing men and women who had lost decades of their lives to a corrupt system. Each exoneration is a victory, a soul reclaimed from the darkness. Leo Washington is, of course, the first beneficiary. With his record expunged and the cloud of accusation lifted, he is finally free. But the experience has changed him. It has forged something new inside him. Marcus takes the young man under his wing, becoming a mentor and a father figure. He ensures Leo gets counseling to deal with the trauma, and he sets up a college fund for him using money from the newly established restitution program. Leo excels. He graduates high school at the top of his class. He goes to the state university, majoring in political science and pre-law. He is driven by a burning desire to ensure that what happened to him will never happen to anyone else. He spends his summers interning at the district attorney's office, learning at the feet of the man who saved him. The systemic change is profound. The federal investigation sparked by Marcus's initial probe spreads to 2 neighboring counties. More judges are indicted. The entire state judiciary is forced to implement sweeping ethics reforms. The culture of impunity is shattered. The courthouse, once a place of fear, slowly begins to feel like a place of hope. New bailiffs are trained in de-escalation and professional conduct. New judges are appointed based on merit and integrity, not political connections. The kingdom is dead. A republic of justice is slowly, painstakingly being built in its place. 2 years later. The courtroom is the same, yet entirely different. The wood seems warmer, the light brighter. The air no longer smells of despair, but of possibility. On the bench sits Judge Maria Flores, a woman known for her sharp mind and even sharper sense of fairness. In the gallery, Marcus Vance sits in the 3rd row. He is not here to observe a trial. He is here to watch one of his newest assistant district attorneys handle her first felony arraignment. She is nervous, but sharp, her arguments clear and her demeanor respectful. He smiles. He is building something that will last. After the hearing, a young man approaches him. He is tall and confident, dressed in a simple, well-fitting suit. It is Leo Washington, home from college for the winter break. Mr. Vance, Leo says, a wide, easy smile on his face. Leo, Marcus replies, standing to shake his hand. Good to see you. How are your finals? Nailed them, Leo says. Law school applications are next. They stand for a moment in comfortable silence, watching the quiet hum of the reformed courtroom. I still can't believe it sometimes, Leo says softly, his gaze drifting to the bench where Abernathy once sat today. How different it all is. It's just a start, Marcus says. The fight is never really over. He looks around the room, his mind drifting back to that day. He remembers the weight of Miller's prejudice, the crushing arrogance of Abernathy's power. He remembers the feeling of being invisible, of being judged not by his character, but by the color of his skin and the perceived quality of his suit. Arrogance, he thinks, is a poison. It convinces a man he is a king in a castle, when he is really just a fool in a fortress of sand, blind to the rising tide. Prejudice is the lock on the door of the mind, a self-imposed ignorance that prevents you from seeing the truth of the person standing right in front of you. Miller and Abernathy thought they were looking at a victim. They were too blind to see the executioner. They judged the book by its cover, never imagining the story of their own destruction was written on the pages inside. Justice, Marcus knows, isn't about the power you project or the robes you wear. It's about the truth you serve. It is a quiet, patient force that can, in the right hands, bring down kingdoms and build a better world from the ruins. Ready to get some lunch? Marcus asks, clapping a hand on Leo's shoulder. Absolutely, Leo says. I'm starving. They walk out of the courtroom together, two men in simple suits, leaving the shadows of the past behind them as they step into the bright, promising light of the future. The heavy oak doors swing shut, not with a boom of finality, but with the soft click of a day's work well done.